Hello, hello. We are live. All right. Welcome to Tomthinkery. Those of you who have never seen before, the idea is just that we're going to be talking about different topics and figuring out what we think about them, like from scratch. So the idea, we're just gonna explore new topics and go in. What does AI say? What does Google say? Like mind mapping. We're gonna just go in and try and figure it out. And it's okay. We're not here to be the experts that know everything, but rather just some people like you just trying to figure out this crazy new world that we live in. So yeah, we'll have some fun along the way. Today I have a really, really great guest. I'm super excited. One of my good friends, Ray. Ray is not only a chef, but one of my best friends, and I think this is going to be a really great podcast. So with that said, let's bring on Ray. Un momento. Okay. How do I bring you out? Boom. There we go. All right, ready? And three, two, Ray. Ray
Hey, hey.
Rosa.
Thank you, thank you.
How you doing, brother?
My friend, I cannot complain. Middle of summer, so just hoping the heat ends eventually.
Someday, someday. Yeah, I'm here in Barcelona. We had that like heat wave going through for a while, and it was just the most sweaty thing. And then we realized the Airbnb that we got didn't have AC. So it
Ouch.
was a it was a time. But we've mostly moved to that. Anyway, oops, my little timer started. So the way I've been kind of doing these things is we would start with just a couple questions that we want to kind of explore. And then we'd set a timer for like 45 minutes. And then once that's up, we'll like take a little break and do something fun and then kind of go back into it. So, you ready? I guess
Yeah,
before
sounds
we
good.
start,
Yeah.
let's look at what are our questions, right? Like, what kind of questions would be good to ask for this kind of topic? Like, we've chosen food. You're a chef. You've got a lot of experience in the food industry. So, what do you think are some good places to start if you're like trying to understand it?
I think, obviously, I think one of the good ones is like GMOs, just, right? It's a hot topic
Okay.
word. What do people know? What do people not know? Like, what is, obviously genetically modified foods are been since the creation of the food chain, really. I mean, we've been using science to adjust fruits and vegetables, flowers, a bunch of edible items since well before modern science got serious. What people know as today is like more preservative based GMO things. Um,
Mm.
so I think
Okay.
GMOs in general is a strong one.
Okay. So let me just I'm going to share my screen. All right. We're going to open up Tom Thinkery here. So this is like if you go to tomthinkery.com, this is the website. And right now I'm still, fleshing it out.
Yeah.
But if you come down, you've got this all topics button here. And then we'll go down to food. All right. So here, we're just going to start with some questions. GMOs. Like, what are they? Why should we care? Any other like questions around GMOs to kind of tackle?
Um, are they good? Are they bad? I think is just because I think in general they have a negative connotation when you hear the word.
Are they good, bad? That's a good point. All right. Uh, Maybe we can just keep exploring as we dive in, answering those
Hmm.
questions.
Yeah.
So, what other food questions would be good to try and tackle? Like maybe what? Maybe like diets, like not like Atkins diet or something, but just like a general type of diet, like
Mhm.
from a chef's perspective, what is important for just the fuel you're putting in your body?
I mean, I think most chefs that have experience in like diets kind of realize that restrictive diets are not the way. It's really all about what you're like the quality of the food itself. The
Mm,
quality of what you're putting in your body is really important here because you don't need um yeah, you don't need a very restrictive diet to be healthy, right? You need balanced nutrients, balanced vitamins, but that in itself for some people can be difficult because they get caught in the prepared foods or like the frozen stuff or the pre-made items, and then you're sometimes you think what's healthy isn't, right?
mm.
But I
But
think
maybe,
overall it's when we talk about diets, a lot of people are talking about weight loss,
mm,
right? And with weight loss, that's really a mathematical equation of calories in, calories out, right? You can be unhealthy and lose weight, and you can be healthy and lose weight. So I think there's a difference there.
okay. Um, okay. And then food, what about like food systems? Like, should we dive into maybe how food
Like where
makes
your
it
food
from, yeah, yeah.
farm
Where,
farm to table. Yeah, I mean, of course, because then you get in where you get into from there, you get into like regulation, right? Because it's like everyone's just not sending food into the United States, and everything isn't made everywhere. So, I think the industry of now that you can get fish in the middle of the United States, right? Like what river, or sorry, what ocean are they getting this fresh fish from? How can you get sushi in
in Colorado?
the middle of,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And why is the seafood buffet so cheap in the middle of Kansas? Like, what are we doing?
How are these things possible? But I mean, there lies so much of like technology, and there is a lot of structure in the food, uh, like the distribution chain. I mean,
Hmm.
what they're able to do
Okay,
with like flash freezing and stuff like that.
fantastic. Okay, I need to make you full screen. How do I do? Okay, I'm gonna come back to that in a second. So, so let me start the timer. 45 minutes on the clock. It's our like little study session, and boom. Okay, so which one do you want to start with? Where does food come from? I feel like maybe that's a little foundational before we get into GMOs.
Yeah. Let's see
Or,
how you find out how
yeah,
basically where's the food coming from,
should we just quickly like define food? What exactly do we mean when we say food?
I think we mean anything that's really made to sustain. Basically, I guess we can make it simple. It's uh, edible products. I mean, it's really everything edible
Products. Everything edible.
for
Okay.
human consumption. I guess let's clarify human consumption.
It's, okay, so what are you talking about when you say human consumption then? You mean like
So
anything that human puts in their face or
anything that humans can eat without it being poisonous, really. So that's plant matter. That's protein of animal. So plant, animal, vegetable.
okay. All right.
But then we have the other category, which are things that are grown and or made.
So Okay, so basically, when we say food, we mean anything edible, like anything that you can eat without it being poisonous. If we say it that way, uh, maybe some argument might be like, well, we eat lots of things that are actually poisonous. Someone might say, like alcohol, for example, we're
Yeah.
drinking it, but it's actually a toxin. So does that still fit
Well, I
in
would
this
say
category?
I guess more lethal, like
Oh,
lethal
lethal.
dose,
Okay, okay.
without it being lethal. Because yes, some
Lethally.
things are,
I can't spell. Spell this. Okay. Okay.
it's like you could
So
consume bleach, not
you you
advisable.
you could, you certainly could.
There may have been
Um,
suggestions to do such a thing.
um, man, this is not going full screen the way I wanted to. Where did my food go? There we go. Full page. Okay, so we've got what is food. So let's just kind of, for the sake of backing up whatever we're saying, maybe let's go on like ChatGPT and see what it defines food as. How do you define food? Okay, just to remember things. Nope. All right, food can be defined as any substance that can be consumed by living organisms, primarily humans. So I feel like that's pretty on track for what we were saying. Biology. Ooh, a cultural, social, and emotional experience. Interesting. Okay, so I feel like we got that one on track, right? Do you agree?
I would agree, yeah.
Pretty much anything edible. All right. So where does food come from? Let's dive into that. Like, you're a chef. Where does you get food from as a restaurant? Like, where's it come from?
So as a restaurant, you normally are going to buy from a purveyor of some sort. That could be someone local, right? That means I might, as a chef, know of a farmer who grows produce, maybe has eggs, maybe has whatever, may have
Hmm.
a variety of things. I can go directly to that farm and have a business contract with them and say, hey, I want to buy this stuff from you guys. There's also middlemen, right? So there are companies that you can buy directly from that are big. They're giant grocery stores basically, but they deal with much bigger product in different shapes, in different ways, so that it can be used in a restaurant. So one of the biggest ones that people know of or have seen is Cisco. They're one of the biggest companies that you could buy wholesale if you were running a restaurant or food service establishment. But you could even purchase from them, like if you ran an office building and you're like, hey, I need stuff to stock my refrigerators that is different than, going to Whole Foods or Publix or whatever grocery chain. Um, then you have specialty purveyors, right? So if people know about caviar or high end fish like tuna or things like that, some sushi grade stuff. So there are some places you can buy just specialty items, things that are not common or things that are really expensive. So there's a lot of different avenues. And that's before the internet came into play. The internet
Yeah.
allowed people to now also go direct to manufacturers. So that could be like, I might have a farm that has cows, but I might not sell any of that beef, but we have a manufacturer that might process that for us. Right now, with the internet, people can purchase direct in the food chain in a different way now.
Mm.
Right. So that's a new avenue that came about, being able to purchase online. And you could see
So
this.
say what?
You see this change from, like, there used to be like mail order food items. People would know, like steaks, right? Like
Hmm.
even in the 90s and the 80s, you would have a catalog and you could buy high-end steaks. Well, you
Yeah.
can now buy those online from the same purveyor.
Yeah, this guy used to come to my house back in the late 2000s, and
Hmm.
he would sell like a bunch of meat. Like you
Yeah,
just buy a whole bunch of it in bulk, keep in your freezer.
yeah. I mean, it's obviously way cheaper. I mean, your cost when you buy protein like that in larger quantities, the cost goes down really fast.
Mm,
You know, the more it's more like the more cuts that are made, the more work that is done to the food, um, the more expensive it becomes because you're adding labor cost to the cost of the item.
makes sense.
Yep.
So, okay, so food is coming from farmers. It's coming from companies who are like middlemen, like Cisco, who do wholesale. And I assume in some way they end up making it for like restaurants and stuff a little cheaper because they're working in bulk. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. You're definitely working with economies of scale. They're buying, Cisco's buying thousands and hundreds of thousands of pounds, or, they're buying out entire farms worth of product or produce. Um, so yeah, and they're getting a discounted price to purchase it because they're buying in bulk, and the same thing, they're selling in bulk as well. They're not selling any quantity that you would get in a American grocery store.
Right. Okay. Uh, so let's dive into a little bit more on like the system, how it's working right now, just for whatever like you're aware of.
Hmm.
Like, for example, if we're talking regulations, so
Hmm.
many regulations are in place for a reason. Some maybe are like some other nonsense, but for the most part, it's like we used to have people working in like meat processing plants and they lose a finger and they would just keep the line going, right? So you regulate it so we're not
Hmm.
eating fingers. So
Right.
what have you found to be like the current state of things for anywhere along the line? Like we always hear about, Ebola breakout or something on lettuce or whatever. Like how do you find things are regulated right now? And is it preventative? Is it creating externalized costs? Or is it what do you think?
I think, to your point, there was a time, especially for the United States, where there was very little regulation, especially when we got into like mass processing, like manufacturing plant type work, like you're saying, right?
Hmm.
Where there's equipment that can be contaminated, and that equipment then contaminates hundreds of thousands or thousands of pounds of something. And
Mm,
that's kind of part of that there. So we hear, like you said, we hear these stories of uh, large quantity of food is contaminated, right? Like you said,
mm,
Ebola, there's lettuce, there's eggs, there's whatever. And sometimes I think that is um, that's the news you hear, right? What we don't hear is how much have we produced safely in for how long, right? We hear often that average human is consuming a lot of food, especially in Western countries, right? We waste a lot of food, so
mm.
there's a lot of food being produced, and that food is being produced safely and it's being regulated. Um, and I think that's kind of, we talk about the negative because we have to. We're like, hey, that's an alert, right? To tell people to destroy or be aware of certain food product. But that alert in itself is based on a very well regulated system, right? They can trace a foodborne pathogen in one place all the way back to the original manufacturer, and they can also track all of the other potential uh, cross contaminations with that one item, right? That could be a case
Mm.
of one thing of chicken. Well, that manufacturing plant might make hundreds of thousands of pounds a day.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
for some people, right? Like some people would hear that story and go, "Oh my God, the food system is so broken. I can't believe they had 100,000 pounds of lettuce have E. coli or something," right? But what they fail to realize is we do have a very well regulated system. Cross contamination happens often. The reason why we find out a lot of this, or that we can make it news, is because we can trace it and save a bunch of people from being also contaminated, right? We would want a
Mm,
system that is 100% sound, but um, I think that's the goal. But I do think that people should look at it as a win in the system, that we have the ability and the tight regulation on things where we can look all the way back to the origin source and save a bunch of people. Um,
mm.
I mean, when you think like some of these manufacturing places are sending food all around the world, and they know the SKU numbers on every box and what store that box is in. And if that box hasn't been opened, they can pull it off the shelf, you know? Um,
Mm.
so that, you know, you could think in a possible crazy sci-fi future that isn't really that crazy, you would soon be able to get an exact notification if you keep buying more online, right? They would know, like AI could go through and tell every person
Mhm.
who purchased that chicken breast or that lettuce, and you get an email that says, "Hey, the stuff in your fridge is actually been recalled." Like you won't even have to look.
Your fridge itself will tell you.
I mean, sooner rather than later, like, which is
AI
crazy,
is
but
coming.
also, I mean, it's when you think about it, it's quite easy. It's like all that you would need is somebody to be able to sort all that data, right? And like you're scanning a barcode for the food, so there is a system that knows um, that you have that item. It's just we don't have those systems connected, right? So it'd be like some AI would have to have the data from each grocery store, but that's why AI could do it easier.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
would be
I
able
can't
to get,
imagine trying to do
yeah.
that on paper. My God.
Yeah, right. It's like that's where you're like, okay, I'm glad that AI could do something like that. Because imagine just like that many lines of code given to a human departments. Like
Mm,
even with shortcuts and Excel, like that's not. We're talking,
right.
probably months of work to find it. But
You mean
um,
what's his name? The little paper
Clippy?
clip from, yeah, Clippy. Clippy can't handle it.
No, Clippy cannot. Clippy couldn't handle most things.
Oh man. Okay, so since you've not only worked in a restaurant but also in like catering industry, and you also did what, events? So there's like a lot
Mhm.
of high volume food based jobs. What have you found? It okay, I'll give a little context. Like when you go to places like let's say Thailand or India, a lot of these like really old countries, they often have a culture of like little roadside stalls, which we'd also have in like New York City, for example. But I don't see them a lot otherwise. And I'm curious, do you feel some of the regulations have made things like that more difficult? Or even just in a general restaurant or catering, are there some regulations which feel like a bit too much, or is it all like quite logical and easy to follow if you have the upfront capital to build the kitchen in the first place?
I think that's kind of it's difficult. I would say there is a lot of no nonsense. I mean, a lot of it is really standard safety for foodborne pathogens, right? So that you don't
Hmm.
create, and that's basic food safety, right? So a lot of chefs, servers take food safety courses, and it's pretty basic and it's easy to understand about how not to contaminate, how not to spread bacteria, how not to grow bacteria. It's like the
Hmm.
basics there. So a lot of the regulation is there, but also there's a part of regulation that is bureaucracy, right? That's when there's uh, you have to get an approval from a board, or this product has to be reviewed a second time by a secondary board to get a label, right, of authenticity or quality.
Mm,
So um, there's sometimes that becomes a thing in the food part. For the actual operations of the businesses, that of course becomes difficult because the regulation can come federal, the regulation can come state. To your point, right? When you said if you have the capital to build it. So the thing that a lot of restaurateurs will have a problem with, or people that own individual restaurants, is right. The regulations change, and
mm.
a changed regulation means that you're out of compliance,
So you have to like
right? So where,
refix everything, close down.
mm-hmm. So that can be something simple, right? But if you own a big building, I don't, you know, if you have a big house, even changing the window, changing the seals, changing, the type of light bulb, or the type of casing around a light bulb. What if that building happens to have 300 light bulbs and you're a small sandwich shop, right? That may be a substantial amount of money for you at that time. So there's parts of regulation that can be very difficult because they're not seen as big in the safety or things like that, right? So licensing, um, getting your licenses, like getting from the state. A lot of times you'll hear a lot of people have struggles there because there could be multiple reasons, right? It could be that that state department that you're dealing with, is overwhelmed with other requests and things, and you fall in the queue. But you have other areas where you need certain licenses, or you might need certain approvals, right? For electricity, for water, right? For occupancy. And that can then uh, change costs, right? Like if you're waiting on one piece to get to the other, I know that in restaurants in some states, to get your licenses from the state or the city, then there's you can hire lawyers or you can hire expediters, right? So it's additional costs. So that's when those
Mm,
regulations and things start to become what for some people feel like a pay to play ratio, right? Where you're
mm,
saying it can seem like a hindrance because you're like, well, these don't seem to be what's this fee or this license going to, and you kind of have to go further, right, than probably what the average person who wants to open their first restaurant, or like you said, if someone wants to open a food stall, like, you know, how much are they concerned with all of the other city state regulation type stuff?
yeah. Do you feel like food trucks have found a balance, or is it like are they like sustainable? Like what do you think?
I do think they're sustainable, but it's just like anything. I think it's a business, right? So your expenses versus what you can sell your product for. I mean, it's no different. Like you need to make sure you know how much money you got to spend to maintain your truck and all of the other stuff, right? It's a vehicle, so there's those expenses, the licenses, all of that. That's the part that people get into when they want to make a food service operation and they don't know, right? It's a business, and you should know your numbers and what you can sell it for. I think food
Mm,
trucks have a great ability, that is, you can move your restaurant, right? Like
mm,
being able to move is huge, especially you don't have rent, right? That we hear that a lot for restaurants. So what happens for food trucks, I think, if you're in a place that the food truck can be placed, um, and you can maintain a client base, that's kind of the trade-off, right? No brick and mortar store means that you can't get the same clients all the time in the same space, but now you don't have rent
mm,
and stuff. So there's give and take there, but I do think that food trucks are sustainable as long as you have, a place that you can have walking clients.
mm. So when I think of, especially today, getting food in the US, it's just gotten so crazy expensive. Like the simplest meal, I've probably spend what, $10 to $15, maybe less if you're getting like Taco Bell, but Even Chipotle is like $12 now. So
I think,
when I'm,
yeah,
I was just saying, like, to contrast that, if I'm in like Bangkok, which is a very vibrant, like probably one of the most modern cities that I've been to, similar to Singapore in Southeast Asia. The food is so cheap, and honestly, it tastes more, the ingredients taste more fresh and more flavorful than almost anything I'm getting in the US. So, where do you see a lot of that coming from? Like, is there something you feel could be different to make it more? We're basically talking about food. Everyone needs food. We have so much food. So, what do you think?
that is one of those where it's not just one thing, it's multiple things. One of them is, like you said, regulation, right? So,
Mm,
what they allow and where. Two is, just like anything, where is it made, right? We
mm,
know there is a lot of food product being able to be produced overseas that we don't produce in the States. Also, same thing. Where can you buy it? We talk about food deserts and things like that. The distance of where the food is produced to where the food is purchasable increases the price. Every time it crosses a border, there's tariffs. And that's before any political tariff conversation. That's just how it's always been, right? When you put it on a
hmm
boat from one country and it gets to the next, you pay for that, right? And then we go into the other part of this. Again, like I was saying, the food chain or the manufacturing chain goes to a company. They're picking a sell price.
mm,
And that oftentimes goes supply plus demand. So this is basics. It's regulation for businesses that is not there, right? They can raise the prices whenever they want. They can raise it how they feel. So that's the difference too. Is also, what will the American consumer hold? Prices
mm.
drop when people stop buying stuff,
Yeah.
right? American consumers are very different. Like, you will see, I think what people don't understand is, if you look at food history, right? We will see many times throughout history that a food product either was extremely popular and then went out of favor. And most of the
Mm,
time, those foods started to become popular because poor people started eating it, right? Either immigrant cultures or just the poorer demographics were eating things that were cheap and then turned them into more popular food. So then chefs started using the same food product, because most
mm,
chefs don't eat caviar and lobster tails regularly.
mm.
Many people that work in food service are people that come from low income, middle income, or at least a lot of the industry has those guys. So you have people that created food from the standard stuff, the stuff they had in their houses. Not, again, most people didn't learn to cook with the high end stuff. You got to those restaurants, so you had to learn the skills and techniques off of more basic everyday food. And I think what the difference in price in the United States is, just like our medicine and just like that, unchecked capitalism means that the company has to keep raising its stock price, which means labor has to come down and the product that they sell has to go up. So I think it is a lot of things. Regulation is definitely one piece, but it's not the only piece. Um,
Mm.
yeah, and yeah,
Yeah, fair
like we were
enough.
saying, get- getting getting fresh fish, hundreds of miles from the ocean requires some really good technology and a lot of safety, for that to be, taken care of in a
Mm.
way that, and you're feeding not just a couple of handfuls of people. You're talking about thousands or hundreds of thousands of servings or people.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so uh, when it comes to regulations, uh, how do you feel about the situation where like there are so many chemicals that are okay in foods or in the um, process of growing foods that are then sold in America, which are not even legal in places like the EU or something?
Hmm.
So, what do you think about all these chemicals?
I think I think that anything that is detrimental to the humans that are consuming it is probably needs to be the number one priority there, right? Like, what are these chemicals doing to the human body? Like, right, we're putting this in our food system, and the problem is that I feel like we've come to a point now where if it is a chemical, it's deemed as bad, right?
Hmm.
Where we talk about food dyes, and there's all these this misinformation about what foods cause other issues like autism and things like that. And the problem here is that we do not have a lot of science based research for all of these, or people will take anecdotal research and kind of paint with a broad stroke, right? Since everybody eats food, all of these stories are really important, right? But
Hmm.
we don't have sometimes a here, I think is a better example, something simple. I feel like a lot more people will watch a YouTube, TikTok, or Instagram video of someone flashing up a research and saying that this chemical or that chemical is bad for the food supply.
Mm.
What they have not done is look at that research. And what
Oh,
they
I
have
see.
not done is look at what the FDA says, right? Or looks at the CDC and decides, like, to me, we rely a lot on people raising these alarms for things. And I'm like, but we have regulatory bodies that are not political, right? That these people's jobs are based in science or, in health. And we should use them as, if nothing else, we should use that as the starting point of our understanding on, is this safe for me to consume or is this not? As opposed to using a chef or using somebody who took a nutrition course or whatever. I mean, not to say that these individuals on the internet don't have an understanding, but I'm like, we have much bigger entities that have a lot of resources that have been researching and documenting this stuff now for decades. Start there and then work your way back to what these people are saying so that you have a foundation of how does these things in the United States get regulated? Why are we in the US, like you said, why do we have certain chemicals that others do not? And
Mm.
are they all the same? And I don't, that's where I'm like, unfortunately, we need to be careful about just using a paintbrush to paint everything in one color when it comes to the chemicals that are in our food. Obviously, there's a lot of harmful shit in our food, and we need to be mindful, but I think that also plays a part in we eat a lot of food that is not, fresh or cooked food that you cook in your house. We have a lot of prepared foods and frozen foods and stuff, and that's not indicative of a lot of places, right?
Yeah. So you basically, if I'm understanding right, it's not that there aren't chemicals and bad things in our food. It's just that you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and be like, all of these things, unpronounceable ingredients are all bad. It's like, let's just
Yeah,
look at it.
yeah, definitely. I think that it's the healthier the food could be, the best it needs to be. But I do think that we've gotten, yeah, there's been preservatives in foods that we've been putting in for quite some time that are not harmful. But yeah, I think transparency, like these things need to be easy for a consumer to understand. Like I think
Yeah,
that's a bigger one. If you have freaking 32 ingredients in an item that you're like, wait a minute, if I make this at home, this has flour, sugar, eggs, and butter. What are these other 80 something items on here? And that's
right.
where it gets, you're like, what? All of this is preservatives for what? Like,
What
I don't want, I don't want that.
You've got to preserve the preservatives, Ray.
At this point, you're that. I mean, that's what I said. The consumer. I just think it's like consumer transparency, and people want to know what they're putting in their bodies. And some of this
Yeah,
stuff is ridiculous. Like, why does this item have this much stuff? Like, what is this?
I thought it was an
Can
apple. Can it just
exactly.
be an apple?
You're like, why does
Okay.
my apple now have an ingredients list?
So, okay. What do you think about I've noticed this that everywhere I travel around the world, junk food is more expensive than like fruits and vegetables. But in the US, it's the flip. So why?
I, I don't know the exact answer. I'll use my educated guess of being in the industry.
All right.
It's what gets sold. Okay, grocery stores,
Hmm.
right? So we would say if we go to the grocery store in the United States, most of them have more junk or non-fresh foods, right? Like not produce. Like produce is a small section, meats and fish small section, right? Eggs and dairy small section, and the remainder of the whole grocery store is all prepared stuff, snacks, sauces, whatever, pre-made mixes, whatever. It's all the stuff that's the other stuff.
Hmm.
And that's the stuff that isn't is really unhealthy, right? Um, if you look at a instant or quick rice as opposed to just getting a bag of rice, right? Pasta. It's like,
Hmm.
wait, pasta's made from flour and eggs and and you see again 48 other ingredients. So you're like, wait, how is that? How? Why? Um, but to your point of why the junk food is or sorry, is cheaper in the U.S. and not one regulation, right? So because they, that's what we can give subsidies, we can give tax breaks, we can do a lot, right? To say, oh no, our country's food supply needs to have more of X, Y, or Z, right? If the country is low on iron, right, they run a campaign to get everybody to drink milk.
Mm.
So,
Okay.
like our country does have a big part to play on how the food supply is, right? But the
Sure.
consumer does too, right? When I think so, it's the American consumer needs to understand that they have power and control, right? But that also is state and federal regulation. And then there's a part of the consumerism conversation, right? Which is how do products get put on the shelves in your grocery stores? They pay for the spaces in the grocery stores, right? So they're paying for those products to be there versus other products. But right, so there's three layers there. There's what what we allow as people as a consumer with our dollars spent, what we
Hmm.
allow for our government to do with our tax dollars, right? Who are we voting for? What are we asking them to do when it comes to food and food supply, right? We can see at the state and local level where same thing, right? You have like the cities, the towns are asking now for more. Hey, in lower income neighborhoods, like we don't have any healthy food options. What the heck, right? They're
Mm.
asking their city and state legislators to go get these people to put a freaking grocery store in my neighborhood, right? We're paying you taxes and you're building
A
another,
stadium somewhere.
fast food restaurant stadium somewhere. But yeah, that. So it. This is why it seems for some people they're like, why can't I just get some healthy food? And the sad part is that there is so much. There's layers to it. There is stuff that's just basic, which is like, yo, go to your grocery store and ask for them to put more of this. If you have a neighborhood and community, your grocery store will put stuff on the shelves that you ask for. If they get multiple people to say, "Hey, I want there's no gluten-free breads in here." Like, and that's something that you need. If there's two or three other people that come in that store and ask for that, the grocery store will start stocking it. So people have a lot of control. It's that they don't know that. They don't That's not something that you can, go to the other stores and be like, "Hey, can you start stocking this?" Right?
Mm.
Um and that state, local level, the federal level, all of that. And it sucks that there's not an easy answer there. But junk food is probably just cheaper because it's cheaper to produce, and if they get us to eat it, then that's they're making making great margins on that, right? Like
Mm,
chips are cheap to make, and they stay in a warehouse much better than if I have to make beef or perishable goods, right?
fair enough.
The loss of money. So capitalism, babes.
Okay, so let's start like checking some of this. Like, um, okay, let's just start with this junk food one. So we have
Yeah.
like a working theory, right? So let's ask which one should we ask? Maybe perplexity? Do you know
Yeah, let's do a
perplexity?
complexity estimate. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, oh, all right. So, okay, let's just keep it simple. Why is junk food cheaper than
Fresh food.
fresh food in the US, but the opposite in other countries? What you got, perplexity? Oh, it's really going for it. Okay. Okay, so in the US, junk food, processed and fast food, is often cheaper and more accessible than fresh, healthy food. In contrast, many other countries, especially in Europe, the opposite is true. Fresh food is often less expensive and more widely consumed. Several interconnected
Farm
factors.
subsidies.
Okay, US farm subsidies. So
I do
what
know this.
big companies basically lobby or bribe the politicians to put something in the bill, then they're getting more money, so that
Well,
can make
no,
everything cheaper.
not even. So the government provides subsidies to farms, right, to grow crops that are like they're basically they're easy to grow crops because they produce things like high fructose corn syrup, right? And
Hmm.
cheaper stuff that the manufacturers, this goes back to your things that we allow in the US versus things that we do not allow in the US. So some of these manufacturers are able to use high fructose corn syrup, which is cheaper than to use regular sugar, right? They can use corn to make high fructose, which you can't use in other countries.
Right.
Right? So that is a part of it. So the company lobbies for farm subsidies so that that product is cheaper to grow, or sorry, that product is cheaper for them to produce on the farm, and basically everybody wins because the politician's getting the money from the corporation's getting the product now even cheaper, and the farmer now has substantial permanent money, right? They now
Right.
have a corporate company saying, "Hey, we'll buy your farm if you grow all wheat, and then
Mm.
we'll buy all of it." Or sorry, wheat, corn, right? They'll say, "Hey, you turn all of your farm into corn, I'll buy it all at this price set, and all you have to do is make corn."
Easy peasy. Okay.
Instead of what used to happen, which is farms used to make multiple products, or they would make two products and then switch back and forth, things like that.
Yeah. So it's saying the European model is subsidies are directed more towards smaller food producers or aimed at promoting regional and fresh whole foods. And there's a greater policy emphasis on supporting local fresh produce over vast monoculture commodity farming. So basically, the opposite of what we're doing.
Yeah. And like we were saying, they don't allow a corporate company to come in and buy multiple farms, right? Like that's what's happening in the US, right? We hear this. Private
Hmm.
farms are being bought out by corporate farms. But there's also the European model versus the US model is the US, we have square footage, we got space. Whereas in the European models, they have a lot of times a limit on space for
Mm.
farms. But like you said, overall they have more regulation in a lot of times too in the environmental safety. So a lot of the farms are required to obviously keep the soil and erosion and things like that from basically messing up the other parts of the ecosystem related to farming, right? They have to farm
Mm.
sometimes a lot more sustainable. Where in the US, we can use different, we can pesticides, right? We can tear up the ground in certain ways. We can do things that other countries also don't allow. So,
Yeah. So I'm curious if this okay. If I just this is diving into other topics, right? But if you just think about uh the system that the US is doing, it's sort of benefiting larger corporations which are running farms versus the small farmers. And I've seen this from my own grandfather's, he had a cattle ranch. And like growing up, I thought that's just how cattle were raised, and I only later realized the factory farming model that's more common.
mm,
So what I feel when I look at this is there are so many little tiny towns if you drive across the US that are just there's like a Walmart and a few large farm companies, and the people living there, that whole area feels very what to say, like economically deflated because all the wealth is being extracted and the local people have no way all the mom and pop stores are gone and the small farms are gone. So who's making any money apart from the corporations and the minimum wage employees? That's just how it feels when I come through it. So
I
I'm
mean,
curious
that's not,
if,
yeah.
yeah, that's not what.
Oh, I was saying that that's not even a feeling. That is the reality.
Yeah.
That is what exactly what is happening.
Yeah. So I'm curious if this European model like would work in the US if we shifted our policy a little bit more this way.
I think that what we've always seen with the United States is it does need to forge its own pathway based on our laws and regulations. I do think that looking at the other models makes sense as a foothold to say how can it be done differently? What do other places do? Um, Unchecked regulation on either side is a problem. Too much
Mm,
regulation makes it too hard for us to be able to do things cost effectively for individual companies and businesses. But unregulating corporations with the amount of money that they can utilize is completely also a problem because that's what happened is now they're able to make and lobby for things and make things unhealthy and make things unsafe. There's good to it and a lot of bad into it, but like you said, we're seeing the European model I think can be difficult in some parts of the US because there's not an infrastructure there where in a lot of European countries and um, even Asia, like a lot of times there's much more walking and the ability to be close to your food sources. The distance
mm,
of your food sources, I think, in some places are completely different. In a lot of other countries, like also you just don't get certain things,
mm.
like or certain types of year. Like in the US, that's the where I'm like on the other side, I'm like, most places in the US, you can get the same type of food year round. The food doesn't grow year round.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're getting it from all around the world. Like we're chasing it in our food supply to make sure that you're getting bananas all year long.
Do you think
Like
that's a nice boon or fundamentally working against the well-being of the soil and just because now you're shipping things from all over the world and there's external costs, right?
I think that there's in the business sense, there's equity on things if you do things equitably, right? Like we know that in the food world that we talk when we talk about manufacturing or farming, we hear the term fair trade, right? Which are
Hmm.
often companies that make a point to pay their farmers, their people, all the way up the chain, a fair living wage based on where they do their work, you know,
Mm,
instead of doing like, so I think that there are ways for all of that. Yes. I think that it's all business, right? And now with AI and the internet, it takes sometimes a lot more. I don't think every solution is easy to implement on a scale for the United States. But I do think that there are ways to do things local and then scale to, state and sometimes federal from there. But I think that using other countries as models is a smart move because you don't need to reinvent the wheel on how things could be better. And that's really what it comes down to is people want to be better, they want to be able to eat better, but it needs to be something that someone should be able to go to the store and just pick up something and it not be unhealthy. It should be pretty average and simple with the world that we're in.
Yeah, the world we're in. Well, so we crossed our first timer, so I think let's just play kind of a short little game.
Yeah.
What I was thinking was I'm just gonna ask maybe ChatGPT for some like a list of like fun questions. We can just like go back and forth. Just people
Okay.
can kind of get to know you and me and all that. So let's do that. Give me 1 second. ChatGPT. This list of nice. All right, let's see what it comes up with. All right, first one. If you were a vegetable, which one would you be and why?
If I were a vegetable.
Would you be a tomato? You're a vegetable undercover, actually a fruit.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I mean, obviously that would be the best option. And tomatoes so versatile. She's just everywhere. No, I mean, I do feel like a tomato really is is the best option. It's the undercover vegetable that never wants to be a vegetable, but is such a
Are we
good choice.
talking like Roma tomato, heirloom, beefsteak, like cherry?
Oh, I mean beefsteak tomato because they're the unique ones.
Pretty classic, like hamburger kind of
Yeah.
tomato.
Oh, and I
All
have
right,
racial ambiguity, so people don't know if tomatoes are fruits or vegetables, and there's always an argument there. So, yeah,
right. Okay, fair enough. I think for me, there's something that's in like the broccoli cauliflower community, but it's got like these spirals coming out instead of the normal broccoli heads. Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, I'm gonna quickly look up a photo if I can.
spiral broccoli spirals. It's not broccolini.
Spiral broccoli veggies. All right, called a Romanesco broccoli. Okay,
Oh yes.
I'll just share a photo so everyone who's watching can see. This is what it looks like. It's a crazy ass thing. Sometimes I see them in the grocery store and I'm just like, wow, that is one of the most beautiful vegetables. Crazy. So I think this, if I had to choose.
It is. Yeah, it's definitely a unique one. It it looks like a flower more than it looks like it looks like something you'd use as a like a tablescape or like a almost like a succulent.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It'd be a nice
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Uh,
People be like, "Oh my
okay.
God, your succulents are."
Okay. If animals could talk, which would be the rudest?
All the birds that get up early in the morning, they're all just add them all into one group.
So birds.
Birds. Yeah,
uh.
birds would definitely be the most rude. They poop on your car. They come and go as they please. Like they don't geese, swans, like not
They
nice.
just poop all over the place.
Yeah, I feel like yeah, come on. Like all the other animals either don't want to deal with you or they are like friendly.
What about like, okay, still a bird, but like specifically, I think the ostrich emus.
Oh, they're also weird. Like in the sense of like because they are so like lanky and like their body movements are fun and
Did did you ever hear about the emu wars that happened in Australia?
why did I feel like somebody was talking about this recently? I
Like,
feel like that's going to be its own episode, the Emu Wars episode.
there's some great videos on it online, but basically, these Australian farmers were like, whatever they were growing, the uh, emus were coming and just like ravaging it, and like a lot of them, like hordes and hordes of emu. And so they petitioned the government to let them like take them out. Like they wanted to kill them all. And so the government's like, okay, fine, because Australia. So they start like they even had to bring out
True.
machine guns and like crazy stuff. And these birds would like get hit multiple times and they just kept charging. They're like, "Ah, you're not taking me down." And the humans lost. Like we straight up lost to emu in this
I
war.
can't.
This
I
is
can't.
crazy.
So are the
So
emus rude or are they just defending their homes?
I mean, you could say rude, but I also don't think they're wrong. They're so smart.
Right.
I did a drive-through safari in Tennessee, and at the exit gate, they were blocking the exit, and they would make you stop your car, and then they would come up and get their bribe, like they wanted the like feed that you have. They're like bird mafia.
The mob. Yeah.
Yeah, different kind of rude.
So yeah.
It'd be a
Hmm.
shame if something happened to your face.
Right.
Give me the
She.
feed.
Right.
All right, all right. Uh, I think I already know what you'll say. Socks with sandals, fashion statement, or crime against humanity?
Crime against humanity. Totally.
Oh man. I mean, but I wear my like running sandals all year long, and so I do try and get away with it when it's like chilly by having the little socks with the split toe. But it's at least black on black. Okay, don't hate me. It's fine.
It's not. There's no hatred. It's just not.
Not just it's
The
a
whole
crime.
point of sandals is for you not to have socks. And also, like, I get for people, like, if you got sweaty feet, I get that. Like, I get it. It's not for everybody on both fronts, but also, like, clip your toenails, like, take care of your feet. But also, sandals shouldn't be worn everywhere. As a person from Florida who's worn sandals everywhere, and hypocrite that I am. But in Florida, it's its own special rules and laws there. So if you're not in Florida, you can't wear sandals everywhere. So
Okay,
just like wearing the beach, you should be wearing the beach anyways, or like outdoors where you shouldn't be having socks.
okay, fine.
Because then I'm thinking like if you're wearing socks with sandals in places where you should be wearing sandals, right? That's like beach or dirt. So then you're getting like dirt on your socks. Like
Hmm.
it's all counterintuitive and it looks horrible. So
Okay, fine.
yeah,
All right, all right, all right. What's your favorite smell that most people probably hate?
probably like yeah, like gasoline, like petrol smell, or like some people don't like really strong like cheese,
Hmm.
probably.
Nice
Because I would say
cheese.
everything else that I probably like is like very common sense.
Hmm.
What's one? What's the scent that you like that most people do not like?
I mean, gas is there, but I also feel like I've had more people tell me they actually like it than don't. So,
Well, damn.
I don't know. I don't know if I'd call it like most people hate, but I think the thing is, I liked a lot of these smells. Like when I used to race motocross and stuff, it felt very like nostalgic. But
Hmm.
it's been so long that now when I'm around it, I'm like, I don't actually enjoy this anymore. I feel like
Hmm.
my scent tastes are changing. So if I had to give one, it would. I I actually find most people really dislike the smell of like compost, but I kind of like it as long as it's not like too way off. Because if the pH is way off, it's like, oh, it gets rancid. But
Yeah, it smells. Yeah, it smells really bad.
yeah, but because I grew up on that farm with my grandfather, and like there was, I mean, just cow shit everywhere. It just smelled like more
Yeah,
nature.
but it has a different. It yeah, it has that. It's there's more of an earthy scent to it, not just like yeah, like you said, it's not it's not overpowering when it is good compost.
Mm. All right, next one. Y- If you could turn invisible, but only when no one is looking, how would you use it?
But when no one is looking, well, how would this be helpful?
I think you have to answer the question first of like, does this when you say no one's looking, does it like what if there's a video camera but nobody's looking, like watching the live feed? Do they have to be making
Well,
eye
then that
contact?
right, yeah. I mean, yeah, you have to determine what are the limitations to the power here.
Hmm. Okay, would you rather switch that question for would you rather have edible fingers or glow in the dark teeth?
Oh, those are both horrible. Because glow in the dark teeth, at least your teeth are like there and healthy. So I'd probably go with that because edible fingers, then that means like you could bite your finger, that's a problem. And animals and
No,
stuff
no,
like your
no.
hand, that just seems like sounds like glow in the dark teeth. Because then at least if it really I guess is that bad, you could put caps on them, right?
Like a not,
Like
yeah.
like a grill or like whatever, like Invisalign that blocks out that fractal light or whatever.
Oh, but you'd never be able to sleep. Like you could just open your mouth, you can see. That'd be kind of cool in the dark. Ah.
It could be useful, yeah. I mean, again, and then it's also like how bright are they? Because like there's glow in the dark stuff where it's like it just glows in the dark, and then there's like it emits light in the dark. So,
Yeah.
but I'd still go with glow in the dark teeth over edible fingers.
Edible fingers, all I can think about is that movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, where she had like the hot dog
With the hot
fingers.
dog fingers, yeah, totally. It's like, but all of it is like nothing about edible fingers sounds like it sounds like a safety hazard and just problems that you can't fix. Like glow in the dark teeth. I'm like, all right, I already got a fix for that. Like, put something
Uh,
around your teeth. Problem solved.
hmm.
But edible
Okay.
fingers.
Okay, last one. You're a chef. What is the weirdest thing you've ever eaten on purpose?
On purpose. I like that that's the guy that give it to you and out. That's horrible. Um, I guess like crickets
Oh yeah? How were
is
they?
like the weirdest. Fine, they're really dry and they're basically like kind of like chips in a sense. Like they're just like crunchy. There's no like insides, like so they're really like put some seasoning on them. And that's really yeah, like grasshopper, mealworm. No, not grasshopper. Yeah, crickets, mealworms, somewhere like
Hmm,
that. Yeah, where's in Mexico?
interesting. I don't think I have anything too wild. It'd be like, uh,
Alligator.
Yeah, actually, in Florida or Louisiana or wherever it was. I
Oh,
think
so I
that's probably
said
the,
we have lots of that in
yeah,
Florida.
right? Okay. So break time, set. Let's dive in back to food. Are you ready?
Hmm.
Boom. All right. So I feel like maybe we could think about uh, as a chef and as someone working in like catering and events, there's a lot of talk about uh, different kinds of diets and different ways to approach food. So, what do you learn when you're like learning to become a chef that you feel people are not understanding that are approaching these kind of topics?
Yeah, I think the simplest is that if you're trying to eat healthy, it's not that hard. I think there's a quality to healthiness, right? Like you could eat fresh fruits and vegetables, and then you could be eating organic fruits and vegetables, right? There is a difference in the health there. But I think a lot of people, or it seems like from what people post on the internet and stuff, like what's healthy, what's not. But I think I wish that more people felt like as long as you aren't going crazy on really unhealthy foods, if that's snacks, if that's sugar, if that's fat, you know, it's not that hard to get what is considered healthy, meaning getting good food, vitamins and nutrients in your diet. I feel like the mistake or the problem that I see is that it seems to be a lot of all or nothing. It
Mm,
seems to be like either you're eating fast food, frozen prepared meals, and you're eating, chips and snacks, or you've got a very restrictive diet. You've cut out a lot of things, like you may have cut out sugar or fat or things. And I feel like obviously neither one of those are sustainable. One is extremely unhealthy, and the other, for the average, especially American person, it can be expensive, right? To eat um, really restrictively, right? Because you may have to go to certain places, you may have to order online, things like that. Your average cost may be, as opposed to going to a place and eating more fruits and vegetables and like raw meat that you cook at home. Um,
mhm,
if you're even eating meat, that isn't a requirement for a healthy diet. Um, but I just wish that more people felt that overall, that if you want to be a healthy eater, you could still go eat at restaurants. You can have ice cream every once in a while. You don't really need to go crazy into restriction if it's health that you're looking for. And I think
mm,
the other thing is diet for many people is about losing weight, which I think there is another problem there, which is losing weight. You can do healthy and you can do unhealthy. And losing weight has really to do about how many calories you're putting in your body versus how many calories you're burning. And I feel like those two diets and those diet conversations get mixed together. And that I think leads to a big confusion for people who are just trying to make sure they're feeding themselves well, their families well. And I wish that that's kind of the thing we learn is there's a lot of mix between what will help you look a certain way and what is actually healthy by, definition of a doctor.
mm. So, have you noticed any? I mean, maybe it's not so easy to condense, but have you noticed any trends in the kind of diets that come up? Like, I know some of them are like Atkins or keto or like whatever, all these ones that trend up. Have you noticed any patterns just like analyzing it from a like food understanding?
Yeah, it's a lot of the we'll call those ones like the fad diets where they have like a very popular name and they have like an ideology of how this is going to be the thing that is the best for a person. And
Hmm.
those I think are again the main problem here is now you have someone telling you you can have a ton of protein but no fat, or you can have this type of fat but no sugar, and there it's like a whack-a-mole of what you can have and not have. And then if the person that is applying this diet is has unhealthy eating habits, meaning like let's say portions, right? Like if they are not sure what a portion is, they may be eating now an unhealthy amount of something else, right? Like eating a ton of steak, depending upon what your fitness is and what your body type is and all that, is not healthy, regardless if it has butter or not, right? Like,
Mm.
so I think what it on the negative side is if the person doesn't have a good handle on some basics of how to feed themselves, the diets can still lead to unhealthy eating habits, and they think that they're being healthy because of this, because they're on a diet, right? Again,
Mm.
I think it is what is being healthy, what's that really look like, and how do you know that you're putting the right amount of uh, vitamins and nutrients in your body? And I think that the restriction stuff makes that harder for people, not easier for people.
Hmm. Okay. So go with different diets that people go on. Some people will feel like, okay, vegetable base is better. Some people think carnivore diet. Some people think a mix of both. Some people will have, some, like, for example, there's a group in India called Jains who are not only vegetarian, but they also don't eat things that grow in the ground, like roots and stuff like that. So, what's been your experience with different kinds of diets and like how they impact the body? Just talking about it like as a fuel for the body.
Mm. I think that this is where I say, like, here's where each individual human, if they have the ability, like, this is where your doctors are really helpful here, right? Obviously, many of us don't, we change our diet, right? Many of us, when we grow up, we eat what is available to us based on our family. And then when
Mm,
we become adults, we start to decide if we want to change our diet or whatever. And that's again based on what we know from how we grew up. Some of us, our families are very healthy, some are unhealthy, some it's community based, whatever. You were in sports, you weren't, things like that. Like there's a lot of touch points where how a person comes to their adult relationship with food, right? Some are
mm,
healthy, some are unhealthy based on other factors too.
mhm,
What um what I've seen as far as food as energy is this again to me is kind of one of the simple ones. Like if you have an average diet and you're averagely healthy, then you need to have a balanced amount of nutrients and vitamins. Obviously, fruits and vegetables in every culture that has been looked at that has a high concentration of this is more healthy. That's heart healthy, that's lung, that's your bodily functions, that's also your cognition, right? Your rest and all of that. So um, I think what I've seen is the people who either start off in a culture that or a family that has them in extremely healthy foods and kind of just maintains those habits of a good variety of healthy raw ingredients a lot of times, but just that, like, you know, um, I always think about what we talk about in the US a lot is like we talk about other countries where their population is healthier,
mm,
but French people I think is a good one that we use a lot is we hear a lot like, hey, there's not as many obese people in France, but their food is predominantly known to have a lot of heavy cream and a lot of butter, They eat late at night, which we're told not to do that, right? It's like a lot of drink a lot of wine, like that's alcohol. We are told, oh my gosh, alcohol is one of the worst things for your diet. And we see cultures where some of these things are um, almost the complete opposite, right? Not to say that France is the complete opposite, but just that there's habits here that contradict what we've been told is the only option for health. And that's where I say you got to know your body, right? Some people have maybe an iron deficiency. Some people do have high blood pressure and they don't even know it based on, you know, how they grew up. So I think
Mm,
overall, the healthier your food can be, the more that you know about where it comes from, the less extra stuff in yourself and in your food obviously all leads to being healthy. But I think that it's so not a unicorn that needs to be like everything that you're doing with food or consumption. You're obsessing about labels and you're obsessing about all the nuances of like every piece of the puzzle. I think there should be a happy medium there. Like you just need to find some balance where you don't feel like you're having to be an investigative journalist with everything that you buy, but you have a general understanding of what you're putting in your body.
mm. That makes sense. So if
But
you were gonna ask somebody, or somebody's asking you rather, um, I still want to have a better idea of what I'm putting in my body, and a lot of the ingredients on stuff are things I just don't know what it is. So where would you go to figure all these things out if you're trying to figure out if something's like actually good for you or not?
hmm, there's a couple of options. Obviously, the internet is the first one, right? Like really learning, simply searching what the ingredient is,
Mm,
right? And that's pretty easy nowadays. That used to be much harder, right? Before you would had to have gone to an actual like encyclopedia and
yeah.
looked this stuff up. But it's that. That was kind of my point is, you know, I don't think everyone needs to look at every single item that's in their cabinet. Start with the things that you eat the most.
Mm,
If you're buying a name brand or a product from someplace, and that's something that you like to eat normally, look at the ingredients list there, um, and ask yourself, do I know what this is? But I think there's more to that, which is portion size, right? We use in culinary school when we talk about diets and things like that, right? We'll know that peanut butter is often looked at as a very heavy protein packed and healthy food item for a lot of people, right? People know that
mm,
people I think now know that certain brands, obviously like the more grocery store brands, have a lot of sugar in them, but I don't think people know that everyone realizes how much sugar or how much fat. And that's not based on peanut butter having a lot of sugar or fat. It's also based on the portion size, right? When you look at the label for peanut butter, the portion size I think is like 2 tablespoons or
yeah.
a tablespoon, which the average person when they're using peanut butter, if they're making a sandwich, is not putting in just 2 tablespoons because that's not getting you anywhere in a sandwich.
That's just
So,
bread
it's
with a
like,
little flavor.
right, it's better bread, peanut butter flavored bread.
Yeah.
So it's like that. It's I wish that we could, not that we, I wish that we, but I think it would be nice for the diet influencer culture to stop making it seem like it takes hours and hours of your week or month or day to eat healthy.
Mm,
Yeah, GMOs are bad in the sense of if you have, certain things in your diet in great amounts, but just eating like just eat the fruits and vegetables. you know it's it's better than grabbing the frozen uh, processed item that has preservatives just because that item might be organic or um, might be vegan you know
mm. Okay, so
or gluten free.
yeah, those have become very common these days.
Yeah, I feel like just because something is organic or something is vegan or something is gluten free, that does not mean this item is now healthy because it is one of those.
Mm. Do you
But I think, mhm.
do you feel like okay, when it comes to things like like you brought up vegan and gluten free, from a like restaurant perspective, I mean, the restaurants you're trying to do your own thing, but at the same time you're serving people what they want to eat, right? It's like a balance. So
Yeah.
how do you feel about the way that gluten free and vegan have become much more common to find within menus across like all kinds of restaurants or even products on the
I
shelf?
think, yeah, I think it's good. I think that that's a positive push for, like you said, meeting the consumers, right? People wanted healthier options. Having vegan options is great. Having gluten free options is great. And the same thing for the restaurants. Like you said, having, especially at a certain price point, people should be able to go and have a good variety of stuff they want to put in their bodies, right? It shouldn't just be meat products all the time, or the variety is what restaurants used to make their money off of, in the sense that like you can go and everybody can get something that works for them. And seeing more gluten free, more vegan, more of these food options be commonplace just shows that the consumers have power, right? It shows that
Hmm.
if people really ask for these things and they purchase them, the restaurants will gladly oblige you and put more, right?
Like
I
chicken
mean,
and waffles.
yeah, but here's one where it's like, I think when I was going to culinary school, we talked about a lot was fast food is kind of same thing. Like they really are trying to just sell as many hamburgers, hot dogs, whatever they can, right? It's a numbers game for them. They're not doing high quality food, but they're
Hmm.
trying to sell hundreds or thousands. And we talk about McDonald's being known for not being healthy. There's nothing healthy about McDonald's. But as soon as the popular consciousness of the average American people turned into we want healthier options, even McDonald's went and, tried to meet them with salads and healthier things. But even now, there are some items, I would not call that healthy, but it shows the power of the consumer is really where it's at. They started putting apple slices and milk in Happy Meals. When we were kids, there was no milk or
No.
apple slices in the Happy Meal option. It was soda or, I'm sure you can get water. That was it. It's like, so
Hey, don't.
seeing these things in restaurants, and that to me is all a positive. I think the only thing, my only caveat is, just because it's vegan, just because it's gluten free, just because it's organic, does not actually make that item healthy.
Mm,
It just is telling you what is not there. That does not mean that what is left is now just automatically better. Um,
mm.
so, yeah.
Okay. So I looked up just on Perplexity, like what are the most asked questions about food from like Quora and Reddit. So one thing I'm seeing is like
Why does food taste different at restaurants?
that's a good place, I think. What do you think?
I mean, that's an easy one. It's got way more salt and butter than you would ever put in the food in your house, and a lot of people don't want to hear that.
Why? So I have a question about that too, because I've been to so many restaurants and like afterward, a lot of times, either because there's like a lot of oil or salt or whatever, I feel so thirsty. Why is it just because it tastes better for people just coming for that casual thing? Are restaurants not attempting to make this as like food you would eat every day anyway? Or like what's the logic?
I mean, I think Now obviously we're in 2025. The restaurant scene has changed a lot over the years. You know, I think even in the late 80s, early 90s, like you didn't have as many people going to culinary school. That happened in the later 90s and early 2000s. That became huge. And that changed the industry. The consumers have completely changed in the past 20, 30 years. Again, the internet changed everything. Like, before you couldn't find the best barbecue place in every city, in every town that easy, right? You could not, you had to pick up a book or find a magazine, but like it wasn't like it is now, like Yelp, Reddit, like we have reviews for everything. It changed the scene. So restaurants always have their niche, their market, right? Some are more local neighborhood spots where they are trying to do things that are more true to home style, right? Things that you would find
Mm,
in your house. Some restaurants know that is not what they're trying to do. You're coming for an experience, be it just the food or the place, meaning, no, we don't want you to be able to eat anything in this place that you feel like I could make this at home, right? Because we hear that at restaurants. Whose mom and dad hasn't said that before, right? I could
yeah,
have made
yeah.
this at home. You're like, okay, great. Well, then why didn't you? Um, so I think it's just all restaurants. I mean, food trucks, catering. Everyone's trying to find their market, their niche. But I think overall, restaurants try for you to have the best tasting food. It's about flavor and taste, unless they're really marketing themselves as something else. So I just think in general, what somebody, the average, will say 90%, or I'll be nice and say 80% of every restaurant, food truck, and catering company, their main focus when they are trying to make the food and give it to a client, it is the taste. When you eat it, it should be exceptional or at least exceed the expectations of what you thought you were going to get. And I think that's the
Mm,
more core of why you might say, why would they choose to put so much unhealthy ingredients? Or why it's like, I think for most, the function is we got to sell it. And if we're going to sell it, before it used to be only word of mouth. And how are you going to tell somebody? You're not going to be like, man, I had the healthiest hamburger today. Like, I felt great because it was healthy. Like, it's when it tastes good. You're going to go, man, I had this really good hamburger. And that's going to be regardless of how healthy or unhealthy it was, right? You
mm.
may have gone to a place that is like got really healthy ingredient and is healthy, but if it tasted okay,
Man.
then it's just that's it. It doesn't, not that you didn't like it, just that it was fine. The only way you're going to tell someone is if it is beyond your expectations, and then it's going to
Mm.
be in flavor, or even yeah.
What about like I'm seeing this edible glitter.
God.
Do you have a do you have a take on that?
On edible glitter, um, yeah, sparingly. I mean, just like anything, it's a fad, it's a trend. It's supposed to be fun, right? It's not. This is again one of those things. If they make edible glitter, do you think that they were thinking that people were going to drink 12 edible glitter drinks in a week? Did they? You think the intent for the edible glitter was to have edible glitter once a week, right? Like I think this is again where you gotta use your brain. It's like candy. Like okay, you could have one candy bar. Did you need six candy bars in a week? Eight candy bars in a week?
Maybe.
Yeah, right. Maybe. Who am I?
It's been a rough week.
But yeah, exactly. So I mean, you had the whole bag of edible glitter. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah,
Well,
I mean, I don't know. To me, having unhealthy food elements is meant for that. It's supposed to be a extremely sparing every once in a while, just for fun. Like it's not poison, so therefore you can eat it. But
mm,
I don't know that we want to consider this food.
it's just goes in and comes out.
I mean, yeah, it's not killing you, or it's not really like harming you.
What if you had enough of the glitter that it's just like oozing out, and then when the sunlight hits you, you really do look like one of the Twilight vampires?
I would be very concerned about how much glitter you had to consume for this physical anomaly to happen. Like when you hear about people who eat something with like a food dye and like their skin starts to show, right?
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I
yeah.
was talking with a friend who's a movie producer, and he was telling me that he saw this Japanese game show once, and this guy was just eating like whole lemons, and they like just to show that he could, but they kept pushing him to do more and more, and he's like, I don't think I want any more, but he had to do another one, and he's just like, you could smell the lemon just oozing off of him.
At least it was lemon, you know. At least it's at least lemon that he was being forced to consume, as opposed to like it's like, you know, cabbage and onions and shit. Like, oof,
Oh man.
yeah.
Oh. Okay. What is one thing which you feel like um, people who maybe they just don't think about it or whatever, what is something that they should know about either how a restaurant works or how like chefs approach food versus like expectations that people might have? What
Yeah,
would
I think
you?
the simple ones are if you ordered some food and the food is wrong, it's not what you wanted, meaning you have to pay for this, just tell them nicely, but like people that make food as their job want you to eat quality, solid food. We do not want you to eat something that you didn't order. People make mistakes. And I feel like movies and television have really, you know, played up this like angry chef game, which, you know, anywhere can have a bad employee, but that's not the average person, even people that work at McDonald's to the people that work at Michelin star chefs and everything in between. So send the food back,
Hmm.
please. Don't pay for something you don't want. Don't pay for something you didn't want. Just don't like eat half of it. You know, use common sense. Um,
Hmm.
and the other thing I think is that the average restaurant wants you to have a good experience. I think that you should interact with the staff, interact with the restaurant manager. If you have a good experience, let them know. But also, if you don't, let them know. Hospitality is an interactive industry. We work on and for with people. We're here
Hmm.
to interact with humans. We're supposed to be of service. That's the whole point of hospitality. So, you know, many of us in the industry want to make someone happy. We want to please the client, the guest. If that's just making a sandwich for someone in the family, or if that's making a meal at a restaurant or catering a wedding, I think everyone in the industry is pretty much in the same boat of wanting to be of service to our friends, our clients, our customers, our coworkers. So just know that going to restaurants and stuff, you are in an environment where people want to be. So engage in a nice way, in a polite way, but um, I think not engaging only hurts you and the experience, right? Restaurants change and improve, so we all want to change and improve together.
Hmm. Okay, copy that. So maybe let's wrap up with something like where, if you had to give, okay, here. Here's what I think would be nice to know. When I was in India, I noticed one thing which was kind of really cool that this one community did. There were a ton of people who lived in this like kind of a multi-story building complex, and a
Hmm.
lot of them were like maybe people working in IT or something. They're just commuting. They're like either bachelors or they're not great at cooking, so they're eating out all the time, right?
Hmm.
So a couple of these people came together and said, okay, we'll take orders and then make food like for people in the building, whoever wants. So you just like let them know ahead of time, prepare, make the food, and then when they get off work, they can come and like pick it up and pay. So it was a really interesting way to approach that issue. And Do you think there is like a space for something like this to work in other countries more like the US? And what kind of limitations would they come across, like maybe regulation wise or something?
Yeah, I think that there's opportunities there. We do see that in big cities and towns. I mean, I know on my Instagram there are individuals who do that. You know, they're more small. They make out of a home kitchen and things like that. Um, yeah, and the apps and the internet are helping with that, being able for
Mm,
people to find more local or home cooked or community based solutions, right, to that home cooked or just healthier food options or just being able to not purchase from fast food or frozen food, right? Where someone is can cook and it's like you said, either community based or cheaper than ordering directly from a restaurant.
mm,
I think the challenges are depending if it's in the U.S. Yeah, regulation, right? If you're going to be selling food, you do have to a lot of times either have a license. The cool thing is because of the pandemic and because of the internet, so like people want to do small bakeries and things, you are seeing more more easier pathways to this in places. Meaning, to
mm,
get a license or to get approval for that to sell food out of your home and things, you are seeing places where that is becoming easier for people to do. So um,
mm.
I think that, yeah,
Interesting. Okay, so I think we'll just kind of close it there for the like diving in and learning section. Uh, eh, so first, like, thanks so much for coming and doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
yeah,
Um, I like to kind of end these with just like a general feedback about like what you think about the live stream, how this went, what was interesting to you, all these kind of things. So just anything you want to share.
yeah. I think that um, I like the format of being able to kind of just like talk on some topics and allow allow there to be like an open discussion on what's really out there information wise versus what people kind of perceive or like what people know. Um, Obviously, always having experts and having people from different walks of life or different backgrounds helps people because I think, yeah, there's a lot of information that people, like you said, there's a lot of information people think, and then there's a lot of information that's just, um, I think that an entire industry kind of has, right? Like the entire medical industry, the entire hospitality industry, military, whatever, right? A lot of these industries just have common things that most everybody in that industry knows, but isn't like for the um, like people not of that industry or whatever. We'll say civilians outside of whatever that is. Yeah. Hold on one sec, Keith.
Mhm. Dun, 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 ba-da. Mm.
Yeah.
No worries, man. Um, yeah, so what, like, if you had to give some constructive feedback, what do you think could be better about this?
Um, I think, yeah, maybe if like the questions we brought them beforehand so that we could pick probably like I think more structure on like the research part of it if we really want to make that a stronger component, right? So it'd be
Mm,
like um and then like maybe timeline or like a time limit for each question, right? So like maybe 15-20 minutes per or like hey, we'll discuss the question for 3 minutes and then we'll do research for 5 minutes or something like that. Or like,
Mm,
yeah, just like I think being able to bounce back and forth between the two is cool, but also I think some topics you may need to know where to find the information beforehand, right? Or like to be able to
mm,
talk about like, hey, this is like this question is really easily answered by one click, but some questions or some topics may take like to find the answer might take its own timeline, and that might be better to have like prepped beforehand to be like, hey, it take like you got to go through 5 websites to get there, like because if it's government stuff, sometimes you have to like go through and then download a PDF or something, or download some Excel document and then do a little search to find out the data like that you're looking
mm.
for. Um,
Gotcha.
yeah, depending on the topic. Um, but yeah,
Do you think it would be interesting? There's a lot of AI like models which have the voice interaction now. If we had one of
Mm.
them on to like talk in real time with, do you think that would be more entertaining than the just typing it?
It depends because I, I use the voice model and it's like it has a weird interruption thing and stuff like that. So I mean, it could be cool. Um, Again, depending on the topic, depending on what it says. I mean, but
Depending on
like
what it
I mean, it's
says.
like I, I mean, what in the past week we've had AI that have already. I think AI is so new that it adds a cool element, but if we want the information to be factual, I think we got to be careful there too. Is like we've already seen a lot of the AI models have issues, so I think it just depends on the topic. But I do think the voicing could be cool because then
Mm.
obviously if you get into the future, you could automate the voice. Like you could put a graphic, right? So it's like
Oh, I
instead of
see,
it
I
just being
see.
a little bubble, instead of a little bubble, it can have it could be a character.
Or it could be like a Memoji kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
That'd be fun.
So yeah.
There's a new one, I mean newish. It's called the company's called Sesame. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
Mm-mm.
Really, really cool. It doesn't even have the text part. It's just pure voice.
It's only voice.
And it's really good. I mean, it's like in terms of the conversational aspect, it's probably one of the best ones that I've used so far. And
Yeah, I've
I've been
used.
really, really, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited as the technology is moving faster, and it's really great to see what you can do with it. Um, Hopefully, we build some type of regulations, but that is the way that's going to happen. So
I
it
don't
is what
think
it is.
so. This bill's like pretty much banned it from states regulating, so not
Yep.
promising.
Nope. And we don't. We're not in that type of situation anymore.
Yeah.
So at least not for some time. So we will be left to our own devices and hope that the market self-regulates itself. Oh, great.
Yay. It
But
always
yeah,
does.
yeah. No, but
Globally.
the AI thing I do think it could be cool. Yeah, to use the voice AI, that'd be kind of fun because then you kind of get like a PBS after school special vibe, right? Where it's like
Mm,
the kids are like trying to figure something out, and the bill pops up to teach you checks and balances for the government.
mm. That could be cool.
Yeah, I
Okay,
mean definitely,
so
and yeah.
AI, do you when I look at these topics, I mean they're all quite large. Like for example, we're talking about food, but that's like a massive topic. So I kind of just assumed if I was gonna try and take on these kind of topics, it would take like many, many different of these sessions to like really start getting a feel of everything. Um, but do you think the process of kind of mind mapping that out, like in real time, just kind of together with whoever's online, would be fun, or better to do like chunks of it in between the session and then show what we kind of came up with in the stream and like build from there?
I don't know. I think it depends on how it looks like really for the consumer that's watching it. Like the person that's watching the stream. It's kind of like, to me, we know that attention spans are short, so it's kind of like, yeah, can you condense it in a way that moves it fast enough? If not, then I would
Mm,
say it's after the fact.
Yeah. So what I've been thinking is, even though short form, like shorts and these kind of things, are definitely like super prevalent, TikTok, Instagram, whatever. Uh, at the same time, live streaming for like long periods and like long podcasts and stuff are still very much a thing. So
The very true, very true.
I was I was thinking like for this aspect of Tom Thinkery would be like these long form kind of situations, and then would make videos like clips or like a recap video or something that's more entertainment, a little bit more effort put into making it like fast paced or graphics or whatever,
Hmm.
whatever makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah,
So that way I can capture both, like whoever, wants whatever they
yeah,
want.
yeah. Then I think then knowing that the topics have so much, I feel like maybe still hitting like maybe at the beginning three big overarching, like if it's food, then it could be just like diets, restaurant, and like industry, and then it could be like farming and food supply, right, as the first three, and then
Mm,
from there open it up, just so that like you said, all these topics have so much big topics within them that I think you kind of want some plan,
structure.
because then yeah, because like as you get more conversations in there, like you're still going to want them to fit some type of plan, right, where each topic, each person could have conversations within each one of those topics, but then you then have to splice it back out to each one of those topics again. And like you were saying, if it's going to long form, then I think you just make it'd be easier to focus in at the
Mm,
beginning and then keep going out from there.
copy that. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
All right, my friend.
What do you, yeah, I know you gotta go. Do you have any other
Yeah.
last words?
No, I really think that this is really great. I think this is really fun, and I'm glad that yeah, I could join.
Oh, dude, it's such a nice time having you on.
Yeah.
All right, we'll catch up uh
Yeah.
next few days whenever you get a chance and go from
Okay.
there.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
hit me up.
I'll
Okay.
catch you later, man.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
All right, bye, Ray. All right, so everyone, if you're still watching, thank you so much for being a part of this. This is super fun. Um, if you like what's going on, you want to be part of this, please subscribe, like all those things. But more than that, if you want, just leave comments so I know, is there a topic you want me to cover next? Do you have suggestions for kinds of questions? Is there something you think I can improve with um, the Notion page, tomthinkery.com, wherever I'm building all this out? Or just anything, any feedback, or whatever you want to say. I would really appreciate it because it'll just help us keep moving forward. My goal is that we just learn how to talk to each other, critical think things, look things up. I'm willing to be wrong. I'm happy to be the dumb person. I don't mind. But if that's something that you want to participate in, like you're so welcome. So come on. And otherwise, I will see you in the next one. All right, later.